It's time now for the Richter Scale.
How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good, Chuck. Really glad to be on with you and chatting.
Oh man, so on the scale of a Richter scale, what would be your visit? Like if you had to put a number as far as a number to the Richter scale so far.
I've got to admit, I don't know where the Richter scale goes, what it goes from
Well,
to.
okay, that's true. Okay, that's more of an American thing. I don't know what you call how you judge earthquakes in the UK, and
We
you
call
may
it the
not even
same.
get as many.
We just don't
Okay.
have earthquakes, so we're lucky.
Fair enough. Actually, we don't have them here in Tennessee. But growing up, I spent a majority of my life in California. Earthquakes were everywhere, dude. So a really bad earthquake is anywhere from the 6.5 to 8 margin. You get into the sevens and eights, you're having some serious damage. So with that, how has your visit been so far? Give it a number.
Let's go with a 6 so far. We're going to go with a
Okay.
6. It's been pretty good. The weather's brought it down one notch. We haven't seen a
Okay.
no-hitter yet either. So when the no-hitter comes like last year, then it goes right up.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you haven't, and technically you can't really count that first game that you went to because you got there late because of the hell with the freaking airport, man. I hate airports. Uh, but so we're not counting that because you weren't there from the get go. But since you've been there, the Angels have not lost. And then on your last visit, correct me if I'm wrong, but did they lose when you were there?
So they did actually lose, just no one remembers this. So there was two series. It was the Nat series and the Rays series, and they won both of those 2-1. But it was more the fact that the wins they had were just historic. Not just Detmer's no-hitter, but like Mike Trout breaking the Angel Stadium home run record, Shohei Ohtani's first professional grand slam, Rendon with the lefty, and also the walk-off win against the Nats on that Sunday. Loads of like incredible victories just all in 1 week. So can't ask for
I
much
mean,
more.
honestly, that more than makes up for any loss that you may have, encountered while you were there in your last visit. And of all of those, and even counting, this year since you've been here, what has been your favorite moment in visiting Angel Stadium?
It's got to be the moment when the no hitter was confirmed, when that final out, when I thought it airmailed the throw over to first, but when that was caught and the celebration started, and when you realised you're just part of history, because some people can go to Angel Stadium for decades and never see a no hitter, and yet I was over there for 1 week of the year and I managed to catch one, so I'll never forget that moment.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite moments too. I was at the Mark Langston Mike Witt no hitter way back when. I was there with a good friend of mine, and that was something to witness. And we were right on the third base line, just right side out of the Angels dugout. And holy smokes, man! Just when it got to like the seventh inning, it was like goosebumps, and it was just a serious tension, right? But yeah, good times. So, what has been your impression of this Angel team versus last year and in previous years?
I've tried to keep expectations low only because of everything we've seen so far over the last decade since 2014. All of those teams that are flattered to deceive. But I think always coming into this year and even to this point, there is no doubt that this is the most talented roster that has been put together for an Angels in the last 5, 6, 7 years. There's no doubt about that. When you go into the stadium or when you're watching on TV, you look at the lineup. 1 through 9, every single one of those guys can hit. Every single one of those guys can come to the plate and you think something might happen. Whereas even last year, which we had this really hot start, but you look at the lineup, as soon as we had 1 or 2 injuries, there was nothing. You just had dead innings all the time where you knew like the 6 to 9 hitters were not getting on base. They were not going to drive people in. But this year, you don't have that at all. So I really like what Perry did putting together the offense. And now there were question marks about it in terms of defensively. He's obviously gone offense first. And we saw in the first month of the season some of those errors creeping in, a lot of like lazy play, I think. And just these guys were not performing to the level they are. They may not all be superstars defensively, but they were better than what they were showing. And I think what he did bringing Neto into the lineup, who can I just say I absolutely adore, I love him. I think he's going
Mm-hmm.
to be part of this Angels lineup for a long time to come.
Yeah.
But what he did bringing
Um,
him up and solidifying that infield defense, getting that shortstop in there, he's made everyone better around him. And that's the sort of intangibles and the sort of thing that doesn't necessarily show up on a box score, but we can see, we
mhm.
watch them every night. So when, we're going to talk about it, when everyone says, national media, we need a shortstop, get Tim Anderson, we absolutely don't. Because Zach Neto is not just performing for himself, he's made this team better just by being in that shortstop spot. So right now, I love where this team is. And even the pitching seems to be coming around right now. The starters are all putting in better quality starts. The bullpen outside of a few has been really good, to be honest, this year, better than we probably give them credit for. So, yeah, right now, and it's easy to say off the back of a 4-game win streak and 2 series in a
Right.
row and the tie in Baltimore. So we know this. Baseball is all about the ups and the downs, and right now we're on a bit of an up, so we can be positive. But I'm loving where they're at, Chuck.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you. And on the Zach Neto point, I mean, I was in Alabama last fall, and I was able to interview him on the field, and you know, he just came across to me as somebody that has been in this game a long time, somebody that just knows the game of baseball, how to play it, how to talk to people. His play on defense is phenomenal. I mean, everybody, was criticizing, his first, his leg kick. We won't get into that. And some other areas of his game offensively early on. But you look at him, and I think Joey Hahn, he tweeted something out where he's got the highest WAR among all rookies. And you look at his WAR compared to some of the veterans, and Tim Anderson and some other guys. Now, those guys have had successful careers, and they're known commodities in the game, and he's outplayed them. And he just comes in, and I don't know if you get this too. He's got the kind of swagger that I feel that this team needs, but it's not the cocky, arrogant, oh, that guy's a jerk type swagger. It is the confident type swagger, like, hey, I'm here, and these guys were all one team, and we're just, what does he say? We're just a bunch of dudes, and he just gets it. He's well beyond his years in terms of like baseball wisdom, and that's what just really impresses me the most. To your point of the starting pitching, that was really, in my opinion, the biggest area of what we thought was positive thing coming into the season. But in the month of April and parts of early May, it's been a big problem. We're seeing that turn around now, and that's why we're seeing these series wins and even the split against the Orioles starting to happen. I don't know if they've made some changes. I don't know if it's just, hey, time, you just got to let it go, and then they're just gonna they're gonna come true to their talent, right? I mean, it's gonna come, right? Every players go through slumps. I mean, it happens, right? Yeah. Happens to the best of them. Look at Mike Trout, right? So, but and then the relief pitching, and that part is, I'm really excited about Silseth and Davinsky, as now we have 2 guys that are a bridge to Moore and Estevez, which is great, because early on we kind of felt like, oh my gosh, we just have Moore and Estevez and that's it. Now, holy smokes, dude, like with the Sam Bachman promotion, I mean, he actually has like late inning stuff, a great fastball, like a great slider to get some punch out. So I'm actually excited about the future of this club, where it's headed.
Me too. And I think with Neto as well, the walk-up song he chose just like is perfect for him. It's fun. It gives that little bit of, it just sums up who I think he is, and that maturity that you said, but also mixed in with that youthful exuberance, and just gets people going, and it gets this team going.
Exactly.
So I love him. And I agree. I mean, I spoke all the time in the offseason coming into this year about starting pitching and how the potential it has. We know what Shohei can do, and even Shohei slumped a bit the last month, and hopefully is back after his last start. But Detmers and Sandy, both potentially number twos, both potentially guys that can give you quality starts pretty much every start. And it hasn't quite come around. They've both looked good at times, but they keep having these innings, don't they, where they were giving up runs. But if they come around, Anderson's been walking too many guys to start the year. But we've seen in his last 4 starts now, he's slowly bringing it round. He's never going to be the superstar. He's never going to be the all-star that he was last year when he was on the Dodgers. But even if he can just be this solid 3 or 4 guy, this rotation goes from middle of the road to top 10. And with the offense we have, that's when things start to get fun, don't they? That's when things start to heat up for them. And as you mentioned, those bullpen pieces, Perry's got the luxury now where he's had these vets in there, he's paid them their money, he's seen that they're not delivering what we paid them to deliver. And he's got the luxury, finally, where these all pitcher drafts and these guys they've been developing over a short space of time, but enough, and now starting to break through and come up. And whether they're going to be starters in the long run or in the pen in the long run, they're coming in, they're giving this infusion into the bullpen. And I think as this year goes on, you're going to see those Sealstess, Buckman, and the rest of them, Yovan, Ingram, Soriano probably going to come up. Joyce, obviously, we all talk about. These guys are all going to make their way into the big league team at some point. And hopefully we can get that sort of dominant pen a la 2002. Because that's what an Angels team needs. It needs that pen.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And it kind of reminds me of like shades of the 90s when they called up Salmon and GA and Edmonds and Easley and all that. I mean, I don't know about you, but as a fan, I love it when the general manager has the balls to call these guys up and challenge them, right? I mean, to some of those guys like Salmon, I mean, he just killed AAA and AA, right? I mean, but there's something to be said about, from a fan's perspective, about the youth movement and calling up these younger guys and cultivating them through the farm and then following them on the farm and then seeing them with the big league club. I don't know about you, but to me, that's just exciting.
I feel like Chuck, I'm just going to have to stop a second. There's someone at the door, so I'll give you 1 minute.
Hey, this is live, man. It's all good. While Nick's out, I'm going to have a little sip of this Buffalo Trace.
Can I apologize for that? That's the danger of doing this in a hotel room. People
it's all good. Dude, I mean, you're a popular guy, so you probably got stalkers knocking on your door, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was just a fan that wanted an autograph, so it's fine.
Hey, before we carry on, let's just do a quick little cheers, mate. I mean, it's good to finally, have some FaceTime. We've known each other online for many years, and I'm really excited about this. And we'll get you on with Victor and Jeff and I on a future pod. But hey, cheers to a great weekend ahead for you and for the Angels, and a safe travel home, and maybe at least one day of nice weather. So cheers to that.
Cheers to you, Chuck. And for those wondering why I'm drinking this, the only thing in the hotel lobby right now is a bottle of Prosecco. So it's what I've had to go for. Needs must.
It works, and it's alcohol. So
exactly. It's the way to start the weekend.
On that note, what is... Yeah, go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
Yeah, to go back to your point, sorry, before they knocked on the door, there is nothing better for me than seeing homegrown guys come through the team. And I think that's the same for fans of every ball club. Everybody wants to see those guys they draft and develop break through and become stars. Not even just stars, just, regular contributors to the team come through. You get them for a long period of time. You get all their service time. You get to see them break through. And there's nothing better than that. Particularly guys that aren't so highly... We love our first-round picks. We love our Zach Nettos, You love your Taylor Wards and come through eventually. But those lesser known, like your Jared Walshes, those sort of guys that come through out of nowhere, and it's all pure development. And from them, it's just grit, determination, and hard work to get them to this stage. They're the sort of guys you just want to see succeed. So, yeah, fully agree with you. That's what we want. Yeah.
Yeah. So, real quick, just a little, turn here. Let's talk about you back home a little bit, and like, is there a bar that's an Angels friendly bar, or is it something where you got to watch most of the games at on the laptop or on the screen
Yeah,
at
so
home?
most of the games I watch at home, usually in bed or on the laptop, mainly because they're all, if on
Well,
the
they're
East Coast,
terrible
they're midnight
hours, right?
starts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're 2, 3 a.m. starts. So most of those I just wake up, set an alarm, and watch from bed. There are bars in London now. There's a couple, Passyunk Avenue, who is a Philly-based bar, but they've got a batting cage. They got loads of big screens. It's a
Wow.
baseball-specific bar in East London, not too far from where I live. So that's great. And day games, we can go down there, ask them to put the game on. They can show like 4 or 5 games at a time. So it's wonderful down there. They got locations now all across London. There's another bar called
Wow.
Belushi's, who also used to be really supportive of us, and we used to book out the rooms down there, and again let us log into MLB TV and watch as many games as we wanted. So there's a growing scene, and I'm part of a group called MLB UK Community, and what we do with them is set up monthly watch parties in London where we bring fans of teams together. This is usually on Saturdays or Sundays when you've got that nice slate of early games. So for us it would be 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. and we bring people together. We bring baseball fans in the country together, have a few beers, watch the game, have a laugh, and it's wonderful. Honestly, it's great to have that community. And I've tried to do the same with Angels fans. So I try to get as many Angels fans together as possible. And we're all over England. And whilst England is a lot smaller than the US, it's still quite difficult to get everyone into one place, particularly in such a small group of people. But we're trying, and it's growing the game. And having superstars like Trout and Otani really helps to get the Angels name out there as well.
That's super cool. That's super cool that you do have a place that you can go to, because I mean, I like to watch. I watch the majority of the games here in Nashville at home, but there's something to be said to go watch it at a public place, right, with a bunch of other sports fans and maybe even Angels fans, which would be great. So, what are your so I've seen you go to a lot of cricket games too, right?
Yeah,
Cricket.
I
So
go to Turkey, yeah.
yeah, we actually have a few members at on angelswin.com that are huge cricket fans. And so I mean, tell us about that experience, how it's, uh, I mean, is it the same kind of excitement when you're at a cricket game than it would be an angel, like a baseball Major League Baseball game, or how is it different and how is it maybe the same?
Yeah, so I'd say it probably we're going to forget rounders for a minute because obviously the comparisons are always made between baseball and rounders, but I don't think they're helpful in this situation. Cricket is without doubt the most similar spectator sport to baseball we have in the UK. And I'd say it's very similar in the sense, particularly the shorter forms of the game. So one of the forms of the game is called T20. So each team gets 20 overs per side. It usually lasts about 3.5 to 4 hours. So you can see it's quite similar in length to baseball. It's generally seen as quite a social occasion. You go along, you have a few beers with your friends, maybe after work or on a Saturday. You watch the games. There's a lot of action in that form of cricket, so it's all very fast paced and runs here, runs, and then you move on. But in that sense, I'd say quite like a baseball experience. It's all about the day out at the park or at the ground, and really enjoyable. Where it obviously changes is when you get into the longer form of the game. So test matches last for 5 days, for instance, which can drag on and on. But I think the similarities are there as well in the sense that test cricket is a lot more tactical, and there's a lot more nuance to it. So I think actually the similarity to baseball is in that aspect where it's a lot more thoughtful. You're not just trying to score runs, with every swing. You're not swinging the bat all the time. You have to think things through. So I think between the two of them, there's similarities in both forms of the game. But I do think cricket has a lot of, whilst baseball does as well, has a lot of rules that you don't necessarily see on the surface, and you could grasp the aspect of the game on the surface, but then you have to dig deep into them. But I think once you get into it, I think any baseball fan would enjoy going to cricket. And I think cricket
Okay.
fans, vice versa, should get into baseball. And I know Major League Baseball over here in Europe definitely have tried to target cricket players to become baseball fans because they see them as the most similar. And they've just signed up a few of England cricketers, Izzy Wong and Harry Brook, who are big England superstars in men's and women's cricket, as ambassadors for Major League Baseball. Harry Brook went over to St. Louis, went over to Florida in spring training, had like a hitting session with them, and he just became like an ambassador ahead of the London series. So there's definitely a lot of crossover there, and one I think that on both sides of the pond they're trying to explore further.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I had to ask because we got a few guys, and we got a guy named Lou who, we've known on the website for many years. He went by IE Bruin for the longest time. You probably have seen him on there.
Yeah.
And he's big into cricket. So I had to ask you your perspective of cricket. He's a huge fan. He's been trying to, get us all watching it. So thank you for that. That's good. So let's talk about the beer in the UK versus the beer you've tried in Southern California. What do you like? What is the differences? Let's hear your thoughts on that.
Do you know what? I was saying this the other day, and I think the beer scene in California gets better every single time I come over. I mean, it's gone away from your domestic cheap lagers that was all we ever knew about. The Bud Lights, the Coors Light, Miller Lite, whatever. You don't have to drink that anymore. I see when you're driving around and when you're walking around, there's breweries everywhere here. I don't know whether that's just in the Anaheim area or that's generally just around California now and around the States. But I've been around, I've tried lots of different beers, and I really enjoy some of the stuff they're putting on. Personally, I'm a lager drinker or a Pilsner. So I do drink IPAs as well. But generally, I'll go to a lager just as my go-to if I'm drinking a few of them. Depends how many I'm planning to have about what I'm trying. But yeah, really impressed by the beer scene over here. And I think that's probably caught on from where we were in England, which has gone a similar way. Where I live, there's a few different beer miles, they're called. So there's a place called the Black Horse Beer Mile, which is lots of different breweries that have set up in industrial estates close to each other. And you go out for the night and you'll just walk between the breweries, have a beer or two at each one, and then end up at the final one. And there's quite a few of those now in London. There's Bermondsey as well. It's just a great beer scene. And as British people, we love a beer. We love to drink. It's kind of a cultural necessity. Right. So, no, I've really been impressed by the stuff. And even the ones by the stadium. I mean, I've checked out the Brewery X and Carl Strauss and Golden Road. All good venues. I was at a place called Danny Kay's the other day as well. So the dive bar. So just trying to check out the beer places around the stadium as well.
I love me a good dive bar. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the vibe. Maybe it's that people just don't give a shit when they're in there and they're just having fun. Nobody's really dressed up. So And so what is your go-to beer? Like, what is your beer back home?
I would probably go for something like a Camden Hells. So it's a Pilsner lager. It was from a brewery that was quite small initially and then has suddenly become quite mainstream now. You get it everywhere, which is great. I mean, I like to see those stories where it starts off as a local brewery and then goes quite massive and you can get it pretty much anywhere across London. So yeah, I'd probably go for a Camden Hells. So if you ever get the chance to check it out, I recommend it.
Definitely. Do they import? So can we get it here?
It's a good question. I don't know yet, but I'd like to think they probably would at some point. It seems to be the direction they've gone.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be on the lookout for that. As far as like whiskeys or booze, what is from the UK, like in the UK, what is the main drink of choice, whether it's a cocktail or whether it's whiskey or vodka, gin? I mean, what are folks' go-tos there for that?
It's a good question. I'd say the most common cocktail is probably a gin and tonic. Gin and tonics everywhere in the summer. People seem to love gin. Lots of London distilleries. Well, even just the brands, even stuff like Hendrix is very, very popular over there.
Right.
So there, I'm not much of a whiskey drinker myself, although I have been trying to in recent years. I've got family up in Scotland. I'm partially Scottish, so I feel like it's something I need to do as I get older. I need to acquire the taste even more. And I know you're. What are you drinking there, Chuck? What can you recommend?
Oh my gosh! So if you were ever to come visit here in Tennessee, we're really close to Kentucky, where a lot of the bourbons are, distilled. So I mean, we got some of the best out here: Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare. I mean, you name it. And then in Tennessee, of course, there's Jack Daniels that's distilled here as well. My neighbor happens to be a squire for Jack Daniels, and he gets all this stuff that isn't even public. And he had one Jack Daniels Gold that's been aged in a maple wood cask, and he chills it, and my gosh, it's the smoothest whiskey. There's absolutely like no burn, and it's super tasty. And so it's super good. And then of course they do the Frank Sinatra Jack Daniels, which is like $200 a bottle, US dollars. So it's expensive, but he's got it over there like in cases. So I'll go over there. We'll be chatting it up. I'm like, yeah, I have a Frank Sinatra. I'm like, yeah, I'd like that. So cool. I mean, it's good to just get your perspective on the differences. I'm guessing you don't have. Do you have IPAs in the UK, or is it more of a
I mean, there is a big IPA scene as well. I'm just not so keen on them myself personally, but I know a lot of my friends will purely.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
I'm not either, and I know I'll get freaking crucified for saying this, but it's just most of the IPAs are so hoppy that it just destroys my palate, and it's just it's hard to get through one. And I know they're higher alcohol content, but I'm like, come on, when I have a beer, I want to enjoy it. I'm not trying to get drunk when I drink a beer, So
I fully agree with you. That's my logic as well. I
Yeah.
understand why some
Especially
people
when you're at a ballpark, right? If you're at the ballpark, get a good lager or a pilsner and enjoy it, especially a cold one. And then I got my beer snob friends who are like, oh my gosh, you can't have a cold IPA. It's got to be, if you put it in a cold glass, that's blasphemy. I'm like, are you kidding me? Jeez. Anyway, we'll move on. So let's shift back to the Angels. So what do you think are a couple keys that they need to, lean on to actually make the playoffs this year? And dude, the Texas Rangers and I mean the Houston Astros, and I'll even say this, the Mariners, who are now 2 games above 500. These are formidable opponents and teams in our division. And it's a tough division. Everybody looks at the American League East, and, the American League East is great. But, we'll just subtract the A's for a second from our division. But it's going to be tough for the Angels. What do you think is the key or keys to the Angels making it to the postseason this year?
I think it is. It's a really tough division. I think the games coming up, we got Houston and Texas in a couple of weeks' time. They're going to be massive. We got to win. You don't play them as many times this year, so you've got to win those games. I think that's firstly important. We've got to play well against division rivals. I think secondly, it does depend on what Perry can do at the deadline and around July time. And that doesn't necessarily need to be signings. It doesn't necessarily need to be trades. It could be bringing guys up, but he's obviously going to have to bolster this bullpen in some way or other. The middle relief is the one area which we've sort of touched on that is not being good enough. We love Matt Moore. We love Estevez and what he's done so far, but hopefully Silseth's this guy. Hopefully Backman can be this guy, but you need middle relief that can win you games because the starters are not always going to be able to go deep into them. So I think 2, that's what he has to do. Bullpen help is massive. And 3, you need Mike Trout to get out of this slump. And hopefully we've seen signs of life with the 2 homers in 2 days. But Mike Trout needs to put this team on his back now. No pun intended with the bad back. And hopefully he seems to be doing all right with these off days. But
Yeah.
he needs to be the leader we know he is and has been, because now it is not just on him. We've spoken about this lineup that's deep, but that doesn't mean you still don't need him to be the one that is hitting those clutch hits, having big home runs when it counts, and scaring opposition. Because the reason why Shohei and Hunter Renfroe and whoever's leading off, or as Moniak or Ward, are going to see pitches is because Mike Trout is there and they're afraid of him. So for me, it's been quite tough to watch Mike in the last few weeks. I really hate seeing him strike out on fastballs down the middle and 93, 94. It's just not Mike Trout we know. And he's always been susceptible to the high fastball, but things have changed. They're throwing him strikes. They're not scared of him as they have been. So I think ultimately, for this team to be successful now, Mike has the pieces around him, but he needs to step up as that leader.
That's what was great about a couple of the wins recently, where Ohtani and Trout just came up empty in the lineup, right? In fact, not just them, but the whole middle of the order. And then you had guys like Neto and Moniak and the bottom of the order, Urshela, all those guys, Drury coming through. And that, to me, is a staple of a championship caliber team. When your stars in the middle of the order fail, you got guys in the lineup that can pick you up. And I know you'll agree with this, but I feel like this is the deepest lineup we have ever had in a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, we go back to 2009, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's deep.
I was going to say, it's better than the 2014 team. The 2014 team was 98 wins and best record in baseball. This lineup is much deeper than that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So for me, a key for me, and I'm a big Anthony Rendon fan, and I don't give a shit if anybody has anything to say, but he needs to stay on the field. He needs to stay healthy. But when he is on the field, the Angels are much better. Mm-hmm. End of story, period. I mean, he needs to get his shit together in terms of his defense and his throws and that kind of thing. And he's been doing it really well for so long. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I have no idea. But his bat in the middle of the order is huge for the Angels. So my biggest thing is him staying healthy. And, again, the starting pitching and to what we've been talking about, that bullpen, that middle, that bridge to the latter inning guys. If we can solidify that, I think that the Angels are going to be in good shape, and I feel that we can go toe to toe with the Houston Astros and the Texas Rangers, and forget the Mariners. I know the Mariners are going to be tough, and they're probably going to be right there in the end, but can't stand freaking Mariners.
Me neither. We both hate them, and I think with the Mariners, their rotation is legit. Their rotation is great, but it kind of
rotation and their bullpen is great. Yeah.
It depends what they do at the deadline. If they go out and get a couple of bats, then they're looking good. But until then, I'm not worried. I don't think they have the offense to really challenge us, the Rangers, or Houston.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll go ahead and acquire a couple of Jesse Winkers and they just fall flat on their face. Or, as you would say, Jesse Wankas, right?
Jesse Wanker, exactly. And I fully agree with you about Rendon as well. And Rendon earlier in the year was getting a lot of abuse for not getting those doubles, for not hitting for power and everything else. But I saw a list the other day of average exit velocities for Halos, and he was up there in like number 4, number 5, exactly where he should be. I think Moniak was top because he had fewer at bats. Shohei, Mike Trout, and then Rendon was just below them. So it's not like he wasn't hitting the ball hard. It's just not been hitting it in the gaps or lifting it.
Right. All right. Last question, and then we'll close it out here. There's been a lot of discussion on social media and even our website. How long of a leash do we need to give to Luis Rengifo when David Fletcher is finally starting to, put things together in AAA? Now, mind you, it's AAA, right? It's Salt Lake, it's the PCL, it's hitter's paradise. But, like Rengifo, you can play Fletcher all around the infield. Even in the outfield in a pinch. Rengifo had a pretty good season last year, but if you look at his on base percentage, his plate discipline is really bad, and he crushed some fastballs right down the middle. This year, he's got one of the lower end of the. When you look at the team's exit velocities, he's near the bottom, and he's actually right around the not the Jeff Fletcher, the David Fletcher. I'll blame that on the whiskey. The David Fletcher exit velocity level. But David Fletcher puts the ball in play, right? I mean, he'll get those doinks and those bloopers and hits. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Hey, I would love to see Jeff Fletcher's exit velocity. I think we should get him in that bat and see what he can do. On Rengifo, I have always been pro Rengifo, and I still probably am. And I fully agree with the people that are frustrated with him now because he just hasn't put it together. The promise we've seen through his minor league career last year, it's just not doing it. But the leash is still long for me because, unlike Fletcher, who had this contract which meant we could send him down and nobody was claiming him, as soon as Rengifo has no options. As soon as you DFA him, he is gone and you're not getting him back. Right? He's catching on with another.
And he's going to flirt. And he's going to flourish somewhere else.
Exactly. And there is so much untapped potential still with him. And maybe at some point we're going to have to stop talking about that and just say this is the guy he is. But I said at the start of the year, I thought he genuinely had 2020 potential. He hit 17 home runs last year. There's 20 home run power there. He does not steal enough bags either. Especially this year. The Angels don't steal bags as a team, but he has the potential to steal 20 bags in my view. He has the potential to be a really, really good role player for the Halos. And for whatever reason, it's not happening. But for me, he gets as long as possible because as much as I love Fletcher, I don't think he is value add as a hitter. And I think as a defensive replacement, we don't need that on the roster right now. There might come a time later in the year, if we're in playoff contention, where you say, you know what, we need Fletcher out there 8 or 9 innings every night just so that we can solidify wins in close games. But right now, give me Rengifo, and let's hope we can find it.
I'm a big Rengifo fan too. I mean, one thing that he's going to at least provide off the bench, even if he's our backup middle infielder, occasional starter, is he's got power potential where Fletcher isn't that guy, right? Yeah. So, and he can steal a base. And to your point, I really wish the Angels would steal more bases. I think that they coddle, Ohtani. Ohtani is like one of the fastest players in baseball, and they don't steal him enough. I think they're worried that he may get injured. Yeah. Same with Trout, dude. Trout still moves really well.
He's the quickest player on the team.
Still. Yeah. And I just don't get it. I mean, the station thing is a little bit frustrating. The fact that they don't play enough small ball, but there are times where you probably shouldn't bunt with Jared Walsh. So yeah, there's that too.
100%. No, I agree. Mike Trout not stealing is one of the most frustrating things. To have 200 bags in such a short space of time and then just never steal anymore, I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it. So here, we'll close it up. I know you got to get to the ballpark, Nick, and so I want to be respectful for the time that you have today. And so, but thank you so much for joining today, and I'm so glad that we got to talk. And let's do this again. I mean, even whether it's on our podcast with Victor and Jeff, or just you and I again. This is really cool just to sync up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so let's keep this thing going.
Absolutely. No, loved getting the chance to chat to you, Chuck. It's been about time. And I've been reading Angels Win, even before Twitter, even before I was on there. That's how I used to get my Angels news and get my Angels views. So always appreciate that.
I appreciate you, man. And hey, one last little cheers to Nick and his time left in California, and safe travels home and victories along the way.
Let's hope so.
Cheers. Have a blast tonight. Go Angels.